Right, that's the third reason. So you got to my punchline before I did. The biggest reason probably is because the internet is not so prevalent in India, and therefore a lot of villages, rural communities still don't have the kind of free access that we're used to here.
That's very true.
And therefore they're not going to the internet to read their newspapers. They're still buying the print editions. But as a result of being behind the times in some way, you're actually still sustaining a form of industry that has been everywhere else in the world in decline. But in India, it's very, very healthy. In fact, not only that, but the industry was worth only $2.64 billion, but that actually rose to $4.37 billion in 2010, and that's just in 5 years. It's doubled. They
doubled the rate of the newspaper.
It's quite incredible. More than 107 million copies of newspapers were circulated daily across India in 2009, and not only that, but almost 1/3 of India's 579 million literate population is said to read a newspaper. That was a staggering statistics to me.
That really is.
1/3 of India's literate population actually reads the paper, and therefore the advertisers come. They come to the tune of 10% growth every year. And in fact, it's supposed to continue at an annual rate of 10% between 2011 and 2014. This is a good piece of news out of India for how the newspaper companies are surviving there. They're thriving.
Well, you know, a movie called Munna Bhai MBBS.
Yeah, hugely popular movie.
Hugely popular. And Sanjay Dutt was so good in it that the director Hirani hired him for the second one as well, a sequel to it. The sequel was extremely good, but now they're making another one. But
don't tell me they're in the trap. They're caught in the trap of the trilogy.
That's right. But this time, they don't want Sanjay Dutt, because Sanjay Dutt has gotten old. And in his place, they want Amir Khan. And Amir Khan is so excited to work with Hirani, and he loves that. But you remember, Three Idiots, he was just so good. So he wants to actually do a Munna Bhai, the third sequel to the movie Munna Bhai MBBS. I thought it was interesting.
It's a risky move, I think. You know, not that Amir Khan is not a wonderful actor, but he's established his own brand franchise, the Three Idiots trilogy. I'm sure that will be one too someday. But Munna Bhai, I think, you know, that series did well because of Sanjay Dutt. He was the heart and soul of that movie.
That's right.
And I think if you take him away, you're going to lose some of your loyal fans who embraced the first two movies so well.
But you remember, Hirani is an excellent director. And he's actually changing not only Sanjay Dutt, but his sidekick as well. They're hiring a new one, and it's going to be a younger group. So Amir Khan, even though he's, 39, 40, 42, somewhere there, but he can play 24, 25 easily. You know.
Well, he's got a baby face.
Yeah.
Folks, I have another great story to share. This one came to me from Australia. Can you believe that? We have viewers in Australia who watch this show. And they sent a story in about the brain drain, only they've talked about it from the Australian perspective. What I liked is, you know, there's a community of Indians now growing in places like Australia, which we haven't normally talked about a large community of Indians there, but they're also paying attention to the same kinds of topics and themes that we pay attention to here in the United States. This story is about the brain drain, but more than that. It's about people who are now going back to India, Indians going back to India to turn things around. And what I love is it chronicles about 20 people that left Australia and other places to go back and do things like create schools in slum areas within India, or to become headmasters of schools to try to grow education in India. Or some of them are trying to bring innovation to India in places like rural villages where electricity doesn't quite exist. So in other words, these folks who have gone out of India, maybe to originally find a better prospect for their lives, have gone and made money in these other countries, but instead of living like fat cats in those countries, they're now turning around to come back home in India to fix what they've always grown up with and seen as problems, which is why I love this article. So it chronicles several people like Sanjay Purohit, who is 46, but he's a social entrepreneur, or Rukmini Banerjee, who is 51, and she is now an educationist in India, or Chandrakant Singh, who spent years abroad in Germany, but then he came back and created patents to fix faulty microcontrollers which are used in cars and in basic machinery in India. In other words, these entrepreneurs aren't just taking the intellectual property that they've developed overseas and leaving it there. They're bringing it back home to India and trying to do social good. And I thought, you know, what a great way to show that the brain drain reversing the other way is a very good thing for India.
But you know, only here in America when people come in, they don't go back. It's in the other countries, for instance, if you were in the Middle East or if you were in parts of Europe, not London. London, again, there people go and they don't come back. It's a style of life, a way of life that you like, and then you don't want to give it up.
But isn't it interesting, though, that this would be the trend from a place like Australia, which in some ways looks a lot like the U.S. It's not so different.
That's very true, but they have a lot of discrimination. They face a lot of discrimination there, right?
I mean, that was the case here 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And Indians have done themselves very well here. Indian Americans have done themselves very well here. The reputation we've established for ourselves is rock solid, which is why I think that antagonism is starting to disappear. But in places like Australia, they're still in the budding stages of that immigration pattern. And so I think in a few years, few decades, you won't see that kind of racism or discrimination in those countries either. India has a shortage that you'll never believe of what?
What?
India has a shortage of Indian priests. You know, coming up in the city of Mumbai, there's a 10-day Ganesh Utsav festival where the elephant god is worshipped, and it begins this month. But the problem is, there's not enough priests available to handle the rush of ceremonies.
Oh my God.
So what is India to do? Well, what they've done is they've scoured thousands of kids from across the city to become priests. They're basically recruiting young kids to teach them the key scriptures that are part of this ceremony. The belief is that by training, in this case, they've trained 700 young boys and girls this year so far, so that they can act as priests for these ceremonies, and so that they'll eventually maybe decide to grow up and become priests. What's happening is there is a big shortage as a result of people. Typically, the young boys or the oldest boys in the family will take after their father. So if their father is a priest, the son usually follows.
Yeah.
But that's not happening anymore in India. And so this is a way of trying to...
They want to be doctors and engineers, just like everybody else.
And you got to start early. So if you start recruiting them in school and teaching them these scriptures, maybe by the time they get ready to graduate, instead of becoming doctors or engineers, they might want to become priests.
I think nothing wrong with that. You know, I want to tell you, there are not sufficient priests here in the United States of America to do all the Hindu rituals. It's simply because, you know, people don't go to temples as much. They want it to happen in their house.
In their house.
So many of them, you know, in their backyard when they have those havans and all of that. I mean, it is becoming difficult sometimes to get the priest.
Now, not to get anybody up in arms here. This is not, you know, forced upon these children. They're not going after child labor in this way. All they're doing is they're trying to give them an intense...
Exciting them.
Exactly, exciting them. Kind of like an intensive Bible study course, only it's in these scriptures. And why is this a good idea? Because in India there is an inherent respect for kids who are associated with the temple. So these kids, they know, will be very well embraced by the public that they're meant to serve. Folks, for many of you that might not realize, the elephant god, or Ganesh, is in India. He's fabled to be the remover of all obstacles, which is why before anything begins, it could be you could buy a car, start a new job, have a new baby. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything always begins first with a prayer to him. You know,
you're absolutely right. Folks, Ganesh Chaturthi is on September 1st. You need to remember that. And that's about all we have for you, folks. We wish you the best of the weekend.
Namaste.